In your 8 years, how have you seen drugs evolve? Where are we heading now? Does heroin fit in the mix?
Yeah, we're rapidly seeing a trend, a shift towards heroin usage, and not just with the typical crowd you would think of. It's young, old, white, black. There's no demographic that it's specific to. Whereas when meth first came to the area, it was pretty much looked at as kind of a low-class Caucasian use drug, and that has since shifted. A lot of the meth is more of the money-making greed aspect of it. With the heroin, it's just you get hooked on it so fast that it just, that's all they think about. They take one hit and they come down off of it, and it's the first thing they think of is, where's my next hit coming from?
Wow.
And it takes over rapidly.
Now, I have heard that it's been a problem in the bigger cities like Indy, Zionsville, Carmel, things like that. Has it been here long?
Maybe 3 years. There was maybe 1 or 2 random cases throughout history in Vigo County where we'd seen it, usually with somebody traveling through or somebody that's not living here, staying with somebody, but it was a pretty rare occurrence. And about 2.5 years ago, we started hearing, the chatter out there that it's here, people are using, but we never really saw it. And then we would take out little pockets of it, one dealer here, one dealer there, small time. And then just over the last probably year and a half, it's here, it's front and center.
Where's it coming from?
We get tips that it comes from Indy. A lot of it is supposedly coming from the Illinois, from Danville, Champaign area, and Chicago area.
Well, and I've seen where Ohio is inundated with it.
Yeah.
We getting anything from there? Or?
Not that we're aware of. So most of our stuff we hear comes from Danville area, Champaign, a little bit from Indy.
Okay. Is the biggest problem that it's cheap?
Yeah, it's real cheap. When we first started hearing about heroin here, it was going for anywhere between $60 and $80 a point, which is 1/10 of a gram. So that's like 1/10 of a sweet and low packet. It's a very, very small amount. Typical, lower end users, first time users, they're going to use 1 point at a time. Obviously, tolerance builds up over time. You'll use more of it each time or more frequently. And within the last year or so, it's come down to between $20 and $30 a point. So, the lower the price is, the more available it is, supply and demand.
Is it a lot of young people doing it? High school kids, middle school kids?
Yeah, we hear a lot about younger kids using it, college kids, high school kids. We haven't luckily had so much chatter about middle school age kids using it or trying it yet. Unfortunately, the statistic is that 12 to 14 years is the first time a lot of them dabble in it and try it. But right now, what we see is, high school age and up, all the way across the spectrum to middle-aged.
Okay. What's being done in that year? Anything? What are you finding? Any sort of education being done? Anything? It's still kind of new, a year that it's been inundated.
Yeah, we're always trying to adapt to the new trends. A couple of years ago, it was the synthetics, and we were trying to learn, educate ourselves on how people make it, what effects it has, what to look out for. We finally got a fairly good grasp on that, and here we come with heroin. So it's a whole new game. It's a cat and mouse game. We're trying to keep up with it and know what to look for, know where to look, and what to do when we encounter it.
Are you able to share with us what you look for, where to look, anything like that?
That's the thing with heroin. It's just there's no demographic with it, so it's wide, wide open.
What about parents that we stick our heads in the mud and we think, oh, it couldn't be our kid?
Yeah, that's the most dangerous part of it. People don't think my 12-year-old is ever going to try heroin. They think maybe they are at a party or somebody's house where the parents are gone and maybe try some alcohol or something like that. Unfortunately, it's so much worse than that these days. It's so readily available, and with the younger demographic trying it, it gets spread across friends, from friend to friend. So it's the most dangerous part of it is parents not looking hard enough, not paying attention, not asking the questions. Pay attention to their friends, their group of friends change, not hanging out with the same people, not interested in the same activities. They should be really taking a hard look at what's going on. Ask the questions.
And it's not just it's kids that are getting good grades, it's kids that are good incomes?
Yeah, it's every demographic. It's from rich to poor, white to black. It makes no difference. It's affecting everybody.
Okay. Is it just, you said shooting up's the most common. I've heard that also heroin is coming in a pill that's kind of a new form. It's that kind of a crushed form. Is that here?
I'm sure it is. With a lot of drugs, even meth, we've seen it put into capsule forms. I mean, people can buy the empty gel caps and put anything they want in it. We see ecstasy, Molly, methamphetamine, and now heroin, I'm sure it is in it. It's small enough, it's easily concealed. You can ingest it real easily or bust it open and smoke it or inject it. Your method of choice.
But you're finding what here mostly?
Mostly needle usage. We'll see a little bit of smoking from time to time, but it's overwhelmingly needle usage.
Which could then lead to issues.
Yeah, like other communities in Indiana, they've got not only a heroin problem, but it's being followed up by a hepatitis problem and a dirty needles HIV problem. And it's just, you know, the slippery slope, one problem to the next.
The Vigo County Health Department has said before, or in other stories we've covered, that there's really no help for heroin around here because it's so new.
Right. Yeah, and it's the same like we do. Other agencies that help with addiction or other programs that could help these people that are using heroin, they're on the ground floor too. They're learning about heroin, you know, how to treat it, what's the best methods of treatment, what works, what doesn't, that kind of thing. So we're all, you know, the whole community is in the same boat, trying to adapt to the new problem.
Okay. You know, not that Topics is the best place to get any of your news by any means, but there was a line there that said something about a couple of heroin overdoses this week.
Yeah, we had I think it was last week, we had a call from a concerned friend that some acquaintances or friends of his had or were about to overdose. They called the police got there, couldn't make contact with anybody, and then somebody came running up to the house who was familiar with the people and went into the house and found 2 people unconscious and one other person that was apparently under the influence. I wasn't there, so I can't speak firsthand. The medic showed up and used the Narcan, the opioid blocker, and were able to revive him and get him to the hospital. That's a key. I know the Sheriff's Department carries that. Our medics carry it. I don't think we carry it yet. I know we've looked into it. I think it's something that, I mean, we're just going to have to, whether you like it or not, it's something you're going to have to carry if we want to start saving lives.
Yeah, it's the only thing that really helps it, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's impressive. If you've ever seen a video of somebody get hit with some Narcan, it literally looks like they are brought back from the dead.
Wow. Is any of that video available?
I've seen them online, just on YouTube and stuff like that. Okay. Yeah, we're more and more frequently hearing of overdoses, and a lot of it's not so much just the heroin problem, it's what's with the heroin, what it's laced with, what it's mixed with. Sometimes they'll mix lower grade, lower quality heroin with caffeine or any number of substances. There's a lot of reports of it being mixed with strychnine. I mean, there's anything to try to counteract an effect of the drug or make it feel more even keel. And a lot of times the bigger news stories, some of the actors and stuff that we've seen overdose on in the last couple of years was attributed to fentanyl-laced heroin, which is refined heroin mixed, you know, fentanyl mixed with heroin, and the problem is fentanyl is 100 times stronger than heroin. So they're mixing it thinking that they're getting 1 hit of heroin when they're getting 50 hits of fentanyl. And their body has no clue how to react. It starts reacting with the opioid receptors in the area of the brain that also controls your basic life functions. Breathing, you know, blood pressure, all that stuff, so your body just slowly shuts down, you go to sleep.
Wow. Do you have any personal horror stories or that you've seen with heroin in this past year, anything?
Not anything personal. Like I said, we're more of the reactive unit. We come in after the fact and deal with things. I can say getting the call of 3 people potentially going to overdose and lose their life last week was pretty frightening. If that doesn't tell you front and center in your face that it's here, nothing does.
True. You don't see it going away anytime soon.
No, it's like anything else. It's the best policy I think we can have is to try to deal with it in a broad spectrum of ways. Try to deal with addiction treatment, you know, halfway houses, all the recovery programs that we can do, educate, try to reach, like we've done with some other things, try to reach students at a younger level and educate them on what the hazards and dangers are, hopefully try to prevent them from using.
You must feel sometimes like you're a gerbil or a rat on that wheel. When you just get a handle on something, something else comes up.
Yeah, it's always something new, and it's kind of a fun part of the game where you're never just satisfied. You always have something new to learn, but it's a bad problem to have to learn about. But it's always something new. It's never ending.
It's such a shame too.
Yeah.
Because usually it's not something good.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Are there other street names for it other than heroin? I'm hearing the word boy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's obviously horse, H, tar. Those are some of the old school names for it. Boy is a more current term. White girl, we've heard it called. It's just whatever group's using, whatever they come up with, the term of the day, and then we figure out what they're talking about and go from there.
It's like code.
Yeah.
Everything's code. Okay. Has the user's face changed? I mean, we think of, you're younger than I am, but when I think of heroin, I think of, Ozzy Osbourne and Jimi Hendrix. It's not that anymore. No,
it's not. I mean, throughout history, in the 60s and 70s when LSD and PCP were popular, some of the rock stars kind of glamorized it, and I think some of the media or magazines, movies have kind of glamorized heroin. When you first think of a heroin user in a dark alley with a sunken-in face, not eating for days, just as skinny as can be, that's not a pretty sight. It's not something that's pleasant to think about. And now media, magazines, modeling, they've kind of glamorized that grungy look. It's not so scary. It's not something that's easily detectable anymore. And again, with the demographic changing, there's no one group of people to look at. It's everybody.
Are you having to take any sort of new training or new anything because of this new drug coming in?
We haven't had to, but we're always on the lookout for new training that will benefit the unit and the community.
Mm-hmm. Old drug, but a new problem. Isn't
right.
it cyclical?
Yeah,
cyclical.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, again, in the 60s with the LSD and the hallucinogens and the quote-unquote designer drugs, we didn't hear about them for a long time, and then 3 or 4 years ago, Molly pops back up and LSD pops back up, and now there's synthetic versions of both. And it's like, if you can't get the real stuff, somebody in a lab is making it, and it's pathetic.
Do you find that heroin is one of the deadlier drugs you've ever dealt with, or where
yeah,
does it rank up there?
There's no doubt about that. In all of my years dealing with meth, there's probably a handful of overdoses that I can think of. As far as that aspect of it, with heroin, it's becoming all too common. I mean, it's not even really shocking anymore when you hear about it, somebody overdosing from it. It's just one of those drugs that quickly builds up a tolerance, and then the user has to use more and more and more, and they never really know what's in it, what purity it is, what the strength of it is, if it's laced with something else. And the more they use, the more it's going to affect their respiration and their blood pressure. And they take that ride, they take a hit, and it's a rush, and then it quickly comes down, and they get tired and drowsy, and they don't want to eat, and so then they need another hit to give them the pick-me-up, give them another rush, and it's a constant cycle.
Wow. Okay. Let's see. Anything I haven't touched on that you feel we have to touch on that is important? We should not underestimate that the threat is here.
Oh, it's here. It's here, and it's in our face. There's no denying it. It's not going away anytime soon. We just have to try to stay ahead of the game and combat it in every way we can. I think the big part, again, is educating, letting people know that this is not just your typical party drug. It's not going to give you a rush today, and tomorrow you go back to work and everything's fine. It grabs a hold of you. People lose everything in a matter of months for this drug. They lose all care about anything, their work, their family, their money. They lose all their inhibitions with it. It's bad. And again, with the parents, a lot of heroin users start with the prescription drugs, the oxycodone or the OxyContin, Suboxone. It's, pay attention. if you have that stuff in your house, pay attention to it, because if that's turning up missing, chances are it's going to move on to a worse problem.